Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to be showing you my alternate history timeline slash whatchamacallit, alternate history alternate American Civil War history. So basically, it takes place in an entirely different universe that I called if I can remember, I just haven't talked about it in a long time. Ignore those people over there. We're having a family reunion right now. But anyways, it's called the Thomas Thunderjam universe. Basically, a bunch of wacky stuff happened. So, be prepared for some of the craziest stuff. So right here is the Battle of Srieville. Srieville, Kansas was a town bordering its northern neighboring state, and was only 5 miles away from the border between Kansas and its northern neighbor. But anyways, this battle was the last this takes place in the nobleman version of America. But anyways, the fifth nobleman, the actual noblemen that were at the battle were only on the American side, the Union side, but they were stationed at Fort Srieville. Yes, they named the fort after the town. But anyways, they were not brought out. Oh, sorry. They were never brought out in the entirety of the year-long siege of Srieville. But anyways, here's what you have to know before I delve into it. So basically, the first couple of weeks, they took this fort. Third week, but before that, they took this farmhouse, and fortified it. This is also farmhouse. They also took this farmhouse, and then fortified it. But for 3 long months, they have been under siege by both sides, by all sides. Basically, going outside the farmhouse walls is a death sentence. In case you're wondering why is there so many farmhouses over here, it's because a businessman named John McTavish basically was big, basically kind of like Kroger. He had general stores all across America at that point, well, except the western part of the United States. This was all in 1895. Actually, this battle takes place in 1896 because the Second American Civil War lasted about 5 years, 5 years instead of 4. So it went from 1895 to 1900. But basically, to get you caught up, basically the Confederates steamrolled the entirety of the Northeast. But then the West was the last holdout for the Union. Srieville was a major fort. That was located by the McTavish and farmhouses. So it'd be basically there. It'd be the equivalent of having one giant fortified place. So they came from the west of Kansas. But in this timeline, they also the Confederates, which is the black and gray, had help from Austria. Austria really wanted Florida and Cuba super badly, so then they ended up joining the war. Britain was aligned with America, but they didn't like the Americans, so they switched sides near the end of the war. But they ended up losing, like they did every other war in the 19th century. But anyway, oh damn it. But anyways, and so after the 6-month siege, nothing really happened. After 3 months, nothing really happened until the dragon soldiers. Wait, yes. The reason why it's called Thomas Thundergem, why that's such a weird name, just to give you more context about the world. Basically, cat people exist, dog people exist. What else? Deer, fox, wolf, and a bunch of other types of animal people exist, including dragons. So the 5th Dragon Corps, part of the 5th Dragon Corps, which was the two major armies that were there, attacked the first farmhouse, but were absolutely obliterated. But they ended up retreating towards the fort, where the 5th Missouri kept the Confederates at bay. The Austrians are the white, by the way. But anyways, this fort right here also had the Dragon Corps in it. But they were under siege not by artillery but infantry. Infantry dug deep trenches around the fort, but they did send 2 companies out to go back to the headquarters, which was Fort Srieville. Tell them that they need artillery support. They put up their 2 biggest of siege batteries, which are basically like naval. But to give you context how big the siege batteries were, these 2 cannon batteries were, they were basically giant naval guns that were built like, yeah, giant naval guns, but they had to be like, they were just giant naval guns that are fast reloading, and not only that, they packed a punch. But they did have a problem. The blast radius could have taken out the Confederates, but it could have damaged this wall of this part of the fort, killing some of their own soldiers, committing fratricide, which is committing fratricide. Then that could leave them exposed for a cavalry charge by the 5th Columbian. By the 5th Columbian Infantry. Yes, because like in the Civil War, after the first in the real timeline, a lot of the Southern soldiers escaped by going down to like South America. So, but they also managed to get some South American countries to align with them, which some of the black pieces stand for South American troops. But anyways, they sent in the 5th Dragon Corps were outraged that most of their 2 companies of their brethren were killed by the Confederates. So they attacked and destroyed all the troops in the fort and used their bodies as barricades, which was kind of gruesome, but again, the dragon people didn't really care. That's all for today. So, see you later, guys.